Hi. Well, we got somebody on. Hold on a second. I'm trying to see my chat from here. Hello, Andrew. What's up, y'all? For a minute there, I was like, nobody's gonna be on here. Let's see. Trying to remember how to get. Hey, Chris. Aha, got on my chat now. Aha, we got Raina. All right, got you got you. Hello, Garage. Happy you're all here. Nay, hey. Wow, look, everybody is making it in. For a minute there, I was like, nobody's gonna come on a Saturday night. I already have a moderator right now. Yeah, and she's got a wrench, apparently. But I appreciate the offer. It's 10 p.m. on the East Coast? Yeah, I know. I wanted to make it earlier, but it's when my moderator could be on, and it was the best time that we could do it, because I do think about the West Coast. I know we got people from all over the place, but I figured Saturday night might be better than a weeknight. So I'm doing pretty good. Chris, I got a lot done. I did a political meeting and all that kind of stuff again. You know, we're getting like, it's more like education and stuff like that. Learn, you know. Did I see Avengers Endgame? Oh, yeah. I love that movie. That's probably my favorite movie of the year right now. I love that movie. How's everybody else doing today? I feel like we're in the calm before the storm, you know what I mean? Like, summer's almost over. For me, school's about to start. That's good. Oh, yeah. I totally believe in freedom of speech and freedom of the press. That's, especially as a journalist, that's, you know, that's top, off the top, you know, and even if you don't believe in what somebody else believes in, it doesn't mean that you have to shut them down. I think the only line that I have an issue with is when people promote violence and they literally say, go, this group needs to go, they need to be killed. But I think that there's ways to handle it. We can figure out how to do it without suppressing what people say, because sometimes people say stuff and they'll believe something one minute and then they'll believe something else the next. You know, they can change their mind. We can all learn from what we're talking about, and I think that's what we're doing right now. And freedom of speech and freedom of the press is probably one of the most important pieces of any democracy, really, because it's supposed to do the checks and balances. So I always have said, and I know I'm not the only one that says this, but you'll know what media is good, you know, what news source is good, depending on not what they're saying, but what they're missing. You know, if they're missing a lot of things that are important to the public, then they aren't really exercising the freedom of speech. And a lot of these news sites or broadcasts are, you know, they're all corporate. They're corporate funded, and they don't want to upset certain donors and stuff like that. And some people, I've even known journalists who say, oh yeah, there's a firewall. They, you know, the publisher can't mess with the editor, but the editor, and I have worked with publishers on a high end, the editor talks to the big bosses and the executives. So they do keep they do keep all of that in ties. They might say, that's not going to work for our, corporate sponsors. They say it all the time. I don't know who Gavin Seam is. Is that an actor? Because I don't remember actors' names very well, and I don't watch many movies, honestly. And I'll tell you the reason why is because I tend to forget a lot of the movies. So I feel like it's a waste if I go spend money on a movie and then, a week later I'm going to forget about it. Sometimes the next day, if it's not good, it takes a lot to entertain me. It really does. Yeah, Raina, she's been around for, like, we've known each other since high school for a long time. So I put the topic, I figured we could go off topics too. I mean, I don't mind answering any kind of questions and talking about any kind of conversation, so feel free to ask me anything. But I had thought about mental health as a topic because in our society, it's not something that a lot of people talk about. And oh, okay, I'll have to look into him. Um, so you're saying Gavin Seam, I don't know if it SIEM is a advocate for Constitution and how officer these days are not what they used to be back in the days. And that's pretty true. But a lot of people can have a whole lot of different arguments about how the Constitution has gone all over the place. What is this about, Oscar? I hope that you keep it cool because I got a moderator this time. What is this about? We're doing a public chat, and I was just about to start talking about it. I wanted to talk about what everybody does for mental health. How do you avoid burnout? How do you handle loneliness, stuff like that? I noticed on Facebook a whole lot of people, it's almost like an open, it's like yeah, I love to meditate too. I think that we should be teaching meditation to kids in schools and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be a religious experience. It's an experience within your mind where you center yourself and you clear your thoughts. And it's just so helpful. And yeah, I liked yoga a lot too. So you feel like connected to a community in yoga, that could be a good way to handle loneliness. You teach your children, daughter has anxiety and ADHD, so that helps calm and focus. Yeah, I wish I learned that. I learned it probably when I was about 10 or 11, but I wish, because I actually had ADHD too. I didn't have anxiety, but I was all over the place, and they always thought I was a troublemaker. Oh, Oscar, let's not talk about. I don't want to talk about him because that's not the topic of the night. The topic of the night is mental health and how do we handle it. Because a lot of people will say, all these shootings, for example, do you really think that it's just about guns, or do you think that there's something more to the core of why people are becoming more violent in our society? And if you notice that all these men that come up as the shooters, they lived a lonely life, they were on social media a lot, they were recruited, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Oscar's trying to start something. You're like, Oscar, are you the one that's starting this chat, or am I? This isn't your chat. Like, you're asking questions, but it's like, why? Yeah. So, I mean, well, it's because I recognize what Oscar's asking is a lot of the same stuff that just interrupts it interrupts the flow and it makes people angry. And that's kind of the point. I mean, you're throwing a lot of, questions that are race related. And when it comes down to people, what you got to think about is not race, it's culture and where they're coming from and what they have to go through and their experiences in the history. And uh, the thing about it is also when people just talk about history, like say, if, yeah, see, uh, if there's with any kind of group of people, you're talking about not just a history, but a present and a future. Where are they going in the future? What is happening now? And the past all have a big historical context. So when you're asking questions like that, it's like, how am I supposed to sit here and spend a whole entire hour talking about the deep history of, a whole entire demographic? It doesn't make sense. Like, you're trying to throw the whole thing off. So, someone says, how do you feel about person passionately and aggressively defending Barbecue Beckley? Clearly think it's her, no doubt, if she's still bothered by it. There's a few people that I think that are defending her. I mean, there may be a few that really believe in defending her. Everybody has a different opinion. But when that video first came out, she tried to get the video taken down. So she was on the YouTube and she was trying to take it down because of freedom of speech and the fact that I just told YouTube it's my own content and it's newsworthy. It never was taken down. So so anyways, let's go back to what I was talking about originally, which was like how we handle mental health. I think in our society, we don't take it seriously. And why is it that we worry about our physical health so much and we don't worry about what's going on in our brain, and we don't think about how even negative comments and stuff like that might eventually get to us even if we don't think about it, or the fact that we might not be able to get the jobs we want, or a variety of things, right? That sometimes you could be affected by the people that you live with and you can't even get away from it. I mean, how do you deal with something like that when someone else is really depressed and no matter what you do, you can't get them out of it? How do you reach out to them? What do you do? Yeah, I don't really worry about people who defend the whole Barbecue Becky thing. There's a there's a lot to that. If I had okay, we'll go to the questions. Nobody really wants to talk about mental health. I don't worry about people who defend Barbecue Becky. I mean, there's a few people, and I think that those are the kind of people that want to be able to continue doing those kind of actions. Like, there are very authoritative people. There's people that want to be able to call the police, and they don't want the society to change. And what I did changed things. So, when you change things, it makes people uncomfortable. They get unhappy and they complain about it. Yes, toxic energy is contagious. So then let me see. All right, we're gonna go, if I was going to have one meeting with Donald Trump, what would I say? That is something I have never actually thought about. I don't know if I could say anything to him. I mean, like, it would have to be something off the top of my head. It would depend on the circumstance. Kind of like when I met Barbecue Becky, I didn't expect to meet her. And everything that I did rolled off the top of my head. So to me, what you say to people depends on the appropriate time, what's going on, and the appropriate timing. Maybe, if I was like, it depends on if I was at golf course or if I was at the actual White House. I don't know what you can say to a man like that. I just don't. He's stuck in his ways, and you know, I haven't even thought about it. If I ask him a question, he's gonna, I can almost predict what he's gonna say. Like, what's the point? Hi, Twice. How you doing? All right, so, uh, and I'm glad that I inspired you to learn about journalism, because I think everybody should learn about it because it affects us. I mean, say if there's journalists there are journalists that could actually write at an angle that actually affects your community badly, you should want to know about that. And if there's journalists who affect your community in a positive way, or they're doing change, or they're just exposing things, then you'd want to support that, and it's great. It helps a lot. Can't you use like energy and back and forth for mental health? Have you ever had a panic attack? That's a great question. Actually, I had anxiety for several years, and it started with panic attacks. And let me say the biggest panic attack I had was when my mom called me. I was about to, I was at this big event, and it was like a rap battle. It was crazy. I was supposed to record it, and my mom called, and she called me to tell me that was, she found out her cancer had came back, and she only had a few months to live, like maybe 3 or 4 months to live. And so I'm in the middle of a venue, people are about to come piling in, and I ran into the bathroom, and you know what was strange was I had anger. It wasn't like sadness, it was anger, this like overriding anger, because I suddenly remembered things that she did that really upset me when I was little. I had traumatizing experiences that I suddenly remembered, and I was just angry because I had tried to help her with her cancer for many months, and her being, I truly believe that she could have gotten over cancer, but she gave up on her positivity. She like had, cleaned up her life, and she was trying to be positive, but she had all these things that she wasn't dealing with, these personal issues. And all of a sudden she dove into the internet, and she started becoming really negative, and we stopped talking. And the first time I talked to her again, she's telling me that she's gonna die. So I damn near like was on the floor, and I was like crying, and my heart was like, it was so clenched up so hard. And when you talk about trying to control energy, I couldn't control my energy. All I could do was like breathe. That's it. I had to breathe it out. I couldn't do anything else. And then I had to somehow go back out in front of like probably 1,000 people, jump on the stage, and start recording. And I was pretending like I was okay, but I almost was like passing out. And after that, for a while, I kept having anxiety and going outside, going out in public around people. And it was the first time I had anxiety, because I don't fear much. Like people know I'm really jump out and do crazy things, and I don't have a lot of fear. So having anxiety is foreign to me. It's like, what is this feeling, this fear of going in public places and talking to people? And I really didn't understand it, and I kept having it, and I would have to cancel events and not go out and not film things because it paralyzed me. And I had it for a long time. So yeah, I had it. It just came back. It's even been around after I ended school this year. This last semester, I started feeling like really depressed, and I think what happened was I stopped having to do so much, because I used working to get over my issues and get over what's going on in my head, instead of actually cycling it out and thinking about it. And so then I started having severe depression and remembering all these things that I had forgotten. And I spent the summer focusing on that, clearing my mind, wondering why it was I was feeling that way. And now I've actually gotten over my anxiety. So um, let's go. Let's see. Yeah. Like, no, that's the thing. Like Raina says, as my friend, she didn't realize it was happening. And I'm one of those kind of people that don't really ask for help either. Um, so that's kind of a problem with that I've had. But that was something also I realized is I didn't even tell my friend what was going on. And instead of pulling away, so I was pulling away from people, and I was hiding in my room, and I was, crawled up in bed, and, I'm crying. I'm not usually somebody who likes to cry. I like to see myself as being strong and not needing to ask for help. But I realized that I had to reach out to the few friends that I have, because that's the other thing that's depressing is like most of my family has died recently, and I don't have a lot of family. I don't have a lot of people around me. But instead of focusing on that and thinking that I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, I also have recently gotten divorced and everything. I started to realize that I did have support systems. I do have friends. Like, I have my best friend Raina, and I should have been talking to her and telling her what was going on. But I was like, oh, she's got a busy life. She doesn't need to hear about me. And then I had other friends who would contact me that I was like, wow, people really do care. And that was the kind of stuff that made me realize, like, I need to get myself out a little bit more. And even being online, live chatting with you guys right now, that's kind of a bit of a way to get over it too, because if I have a fear of talking to people, this is like one of the easiest ways to do it, because I'm finding people that are kind of like-minded like me, and it makes me feel more comfortable, rather than trying to go out into a big public space where people just want to party, and it's loud, and it's focused on music or drinking, and I don't really like drinking. It just doesn't make sense for me to be there, so of course I'm going to be uncomfortable. Finding people, it's one of those things where being online can actually be helpful. If you are online only and that's the only way you can communicate, and you don't find anybody live, like we as humans, by human nature, I think that we feel depressed and loneliness when we don't have somebody that we can actually talk to in person. So we need that as well, and I think that's one of the most important things. But how did I handle it was I meditated. I walked outside instead of staying, sometimes I wanted to stay inside all the time. Eventually I just was like, go out and walk, just go out and do something, anything. I started going to movies by myself. I just started playing video games again. I started expressing myself online. I would write things. I would stop fearing about what people thought and started telling people my truth of what I was going through. And in doing that, it's helped me heal a lot. So I think that that's one of the ways that I handled it. But definitely meditating and thinking, like, sometimes you just have to shut all the noise off, and you have to befriend yourself first. You have to be your own friend, and you have to trust yourself. You have to, because really, at the end of the day, this is who you have. This is who you have to deal with the most, is the thoughts in your own head. So if you can't find a way to, enjoy being with yourself, then you're always going to have this struggle with yourself. You're always going to not appreciate who you are. I don't care what anybody says at this point. Like, I love myself. I love who I am. And even though sometimes even I get on my nerves, it doesn't matter. Like, I also can't expect myself to be perfect either. Every day is a challenge of learning something, and accepting the fact that sometimes I am wrong, and sometimes I don't know better. As much as I want to be, I almost want to be a perfectionist, and that could be really hard. Oh yeah, and there was a question. I didn't. Did you worry that you recording Barbecue Becky, you went famous and she was a racist? That actually didn't help my anxiety. um, that, yeah. I was worried of, I mean, from the day one, I was like, man, this has a potential of going viral. I didn't expect it to go that viral. And then all of a sudden, media of all places, all the way around the world, is contacting me. It gave me anxiety. I did a few news broadcasts. I did a few interviews, but the thing was that most people weren't really interested in what I had to say, anyways. So I ended up passing it over to my ex-husband, who was one of the men in the video. The other man who was there the longest, who was starting the barbecue, he was always at work, so he wasn't really able to interview much. So eventually, I think that the hardest part was I was worried that people outside would recognize me, and part of my anxiety also was I had gone to all these violent rallies in Berkeley, and people had seen me recording them, you know, the, like, whatever they want to call them, Trump supporters or alt-right or this and that. And not everybody was like bad, but you know, when you see people doing these harassing things online, like they will take somebody and they'll label them, you know, whatever they label them, and then they throw them online. I really didn't want to do that. Like, I really didn't want people trying to attack me, but at the same time, I was like, I'll be ready for it, no matter what, because all of this stuff is worth it to do, to change people's perspectives. That's kind of why I want to expose how we really are. So it was all worth it. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, it's funny. You forget how to breathe when you have a panic attack. I don't know why, and I'm not used to that stuff. Like, I've never had that happen before. Did she use her illness? I don't know if she even has an illness. I'm not gonna. I mean, it seems like she's stuck. You know, and I think that all of us have probably something that gets us stuck in a certain way, but um yeah, I don't know. I think it would be I don't really respect people that can't stand behind their position and just hide. Oh, my mom? Let's see. Let me go back. Uh the question was, oh, thank you, Angel. Hi, Angel. um yeah, Zach. Were you talking about my mom? Yeah, my mom was very manipulative, and like, when I had a panic attack, you know what I remembered that I had totally forgotten? My mom, when I was 5, I feel like my mom had mental illness. Like, she had severe depression, and it just it was stuff that, these are things that I've been thinking about for a long time. She used to, you know, it was like suddenly I remembered in that bathroom at that time, which made me angry, was how she locked me in a closet when I was like 5 years old, a broom closet. We're talking about like only big enough for me to like stand in, or to crunch my knees up. And you know, I remember her doing it several times. So I know I was kind of a wild child and everything, but her way of handling me when I was getting to be too much for her was to lock me in this closet. And it made me realize why I was claustrophobic. You know, this is just one example of things that I started to remember and why I resented her. But she used to gaslight me all the time. Um, yeah, you're probably missing me spilling my whole life story about my mom. Um, so she often used to make me feel guilty about a lot of stuff. And yeah, so when she was ill with when she had cancer, though, it wasn't really a guilt trip of why she needed me to come over there. It was because, you know, like, my niece was there all the time, and my brother and his wife had just pretty much dumped her there, and my mom was going through cancer treatment. So I was going from like going to work, and I also have my own household to take care of, and I had to go all the way to this other city to take care of my mom. And I was taking care of her, and I saw her like we built our relationship. So imagine we had this really, really bad relationship, and then when she's ill, we were, uh, yeah, goodbye, right? Like we, she had said, oh, we should spend more time together. Like when somebody's dying, you start to realize that you wasted a lot of time not being with each other, especially with a mom and a daughter, because that's what angered me the most, is that we wasted so much time arguing with each other, and all I wanted was a relationship with my mom, pretty much. So at that point, though, when she told me that she was dying, she was scared. So at that point, she wasn't guilt tripping me. Instead, it was like a reality to her, and she felt bad. So she, that was like some of the last things she told me, was she felt bad for, and she wished that we had a better relationship. So, I'm glad that I was able to let those things go with her towards the end. But if she wasn't dying, I don't think we ever would have had that conversation. It would be a totally different story, because she just, it's like she thought she was dying, and then when she thought she didn't have cancer, she went right back to the way she was. And then when she knew she was totally going to die, it was like, okay, now she has to face all of the things in her past. So, let's see. What camera do I use when you record people, and do they get mad? Okay, so when Raina says, my mom lived a river in Egypt, she means denial. And that was totally her. She denied. And that has a lot to do with the gaslighting too. Like, it's not happening. This isn't really happening. What you're seeing isn't really happening. So when I went to the Berkeley thing, at first I used my iPhone, and the footage was okay. And then I used a Canon 70D that I had. And that was crazy bananas, because I actually, like, at one point, there was this guy getting pulled into the crowd, and I actually put my, he was getting pulled in, and they were going to jump him. Like, they were going to stomp him and take his mask off and all this stuff. And I actually put my camera down on the ground and helped pull him back up, and then got my camera up. And then there's another part where these white nationalists, that they were called RAM, RAM, Rise Above Movement, they came running towards me, and I have the camera, so I'm like just holding it. I think I was holding it like a football, and I like ducked and dived like that around them, because one of them, looked like he was about to punch me. And then when I see somebody else with the recording, it looked like he was trying to punch me. They went straight through me. So you can, if you're in an environment like that, it's possible for you to get hit. It's just that I was very observant, and I'm actually a little more athletic than a lot of people think I am. So I can actually maneuver and notice, and I was paying attention to what was going on. When it came down to the barbecue Becky thing, I just used my phone. iPhones nowadays are so good. It's a lot easier if you film people doing things badly, because it's just a regular iPhone. If you bring out a big camera that's professional, people will change their whole attitude. They'll act, it's like they get it in their head that they might actually get on TV or something, and the way they act totally changes. Okay, so was my ex black? Yes. And my daughters are also half black. And and when I went to the one rally where I was talking about the Rise Above movement, the white nationalists who also went to Charlottesville, and they were violent over there, and they had a whole entire, I think most of their stuff went to trial already, but yeah, I was wearing a Black Panther jacket. It had like the Panther patch. So I actually have it on video where they're like screaming at me, calling me a race traitor and everything. So it was pretty wild. Imagine that all of those Berkeley rallies happened just 2 months after my mom died. So talk about reasons to have anxiety, right? Yes, that was my ex-husband. He's the one that was smoking the cigarette that is behind the image of her and all those memes. And then there was one other man there that was his friend who was there. He was the one that was doing the barbecue, and he was there the whole entire time with her. 2 hours, he says, 2 hours that she just sat there before I even got there, and that she kept saying that she was going to get them arrested. So let's see. Anything else? I don't think I missed anybody, right? Angel said, "Are you ever planning on writing a book about journalism and your experiences?" Um, I do plan on writing a book because a lot of people have said I have a lot of weird stories. I have a lot of crazy stories. Probably not the most predictable person ever. I've put myself in a lot of crazy situations, and I've stayed my ground on a lot of things, and it put me in crazy situations. So I do plan on doing that. I was kind of thinking about writing little mini memoirs. Yeah, Raina says it'll be like 3 or 4 books. It could be a lot of different subjects too. Um, and so, yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about writing mini memoirs or stories on Patreon about stuff that I go through, because the other thing is I'm trying to find a way to pretty much make money as well. I'm just gonna keep it real. Like, why wouldn't I sell my stories, right? Um, I'm a student, and I kind of need to find a way to make income, because I can't live off of the little inheritance I have left, right? You liked my pit bull? I'm glad somebody liked my pit bull. I just loved, I don't know, it's like every time now that I think of a story like that or remember something, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to start telling you stories. Do you want to hear a story? Oh, I have a lot of crazy stories. And also, I've done a lot of crazy things. I mean, and Renee will tell you, I have done a lot of crazy things, and I have a lot of stories. Uh, Yeah, exactly. If I can make a living, I don't need like to be rich. I don't care about that. I just want to pay rent and be able to get my kids through college, like I just want a regular life. That will make me happy. And if I could do it doing something I love doing, because I really like doing this. This is a lot funner than anything else. I feel like I'm lucky that I'm able to do it now. How do you feel about Permit Patty and Coupon Carl? I don't think I kept up with Coupon Carl. All those people, oh gosh. Um, I feel kind of the same way about all of them, really. I can't understand why they keep being okay with being filmed. They think that they are doing, I don't know what they're thinking. It's like the audacity, right? To think that's okay. And it really shows how there are certain people that really believe that they have the authority over everybody else, or they believe in the rules of society in a certain way, and it's not even really rules. It just I can't even imagine doing the things that they do. Like I don't call the police on practice for anything. There was only one time I've called the police, and it was because my brother was acting like crazy and like he was gonna attack me, and that was it. Um, Other than that, I don't think I've ever even called the police. I've never needed to, and I don't understand why you would. Like a lot of these people, they probably are like, yeah, and I don't like to pay taxes. Well, you're wasting a lot of tax money, aren't you? Jeez. Would you one day want to work for ABC, or you mean like one of those big news outlets? Uh, Maybe NBC. I think that they do pretty good work, but I don't think that they would pick me unless I became super popular. And that's because, I'm a bit of a, revolutionary, right? Raina says Vox. Vox is good. I probably would be one of those more independent ones, but the way that I do things, I think that I'm a little too controversial. But maybe one day, um, I don't want to sacrifice what I believe in, which is talking about real issues. I don't want to be on some channel being a talking head asking, uh, like 2 years out, do you think that we're going to be able to unseat this president, and just talking about the same subjects all day? It's like there's so many different things that we have issues with that we should be talking about and that are not being talked about. So if I can't talk about what I find interesting, especially locally, then I'm not really going to be interested in it, right? um, and I've had a few people say that they wanted me to try and get jobs at local news outlets, and I have even tried to outreach to them, and the people that are in charge are not interested in talking to me. Like I said, they weren't even really interested in interviewing me. It was one journalist who still stays very interested, and there's a few other journalists, actually. I wouldn't say one. There's a few from different networks that are super supportive of me because they think it's interesting that I'm a journalist. They're like, oh, not only did this go viral, it went viral by a journalism student, and they follow me. I have a whole bunch of journalists that follow me on Twitter, and some are even friends on my Facebook, so they keep up with what I'm saying. But when it comes down to the hiring people, I don't think they're interested in me. I'm a little too too dangerous for them. Oh, Jeffrey Epstein, him dying. Whew, that one's a weird one, isn't it? um I kind of feel like, yeah, real issues, exactly. I feel like there's a good reason why we're running with conspiracy issue theories right now. What is a conspiracy theory? A conspiracy theory is just something that you think is happening, but you have no proof of it. And sometimes they can be true. And sometimes, most of the time they're not, but why do they come up and why are they so popular right now? It's because our government um, doesn't really tell what is going on, right? So that's why WikiLeaks became so popular, because they were exposing things. So there are a lot of things we should know about. I mean, our government is funded by the public, right? Shouldn't we know? Journalists should be able to get information. I understand them wanting to redact certain names and stuff like that, but if we're fighting a war, we need to know if that's a justifiable war, and I don't think we've been in a justifiable war. So that's one example. Now you're talking about, like, after all these years that the public trust is just fading and fading and fading, and now you have Jeffrey Epstein, who has was about to go on trial for pretty much running a sex trafficking ring with underage girls. The epitome of a rich man getting away with something like this and having all these powerful contacts. And he was so full of himself that he wanted to populate an island with his offspring. I don't know if you guys know this, but he was into eugenics, and he believed that he could populate. He was talking to all these scientists and stuff. So all these things are coming out about him. Now, do I think that he might have committed suicide? It could be possible. He didn't seem to act like he would have. It's kind of hard to say. But my first thought was, yeah, that's super suspicious. Like, there's too many rich, powerful people, and I really wouldn't put it past them to pull something to get rid of them. I mean, it's almost like dealing with you're talking about the way the corruption we have, the levels of corruption between government and corporations and all these rich people is like, it's obvious to us right now. So why wouldn't we be surprised if they were acting like mob bosses and knocking people off who have potentials to be witnesses to how they really are? How many people were involved with a pedophile sex ring, right? That's crazy. But it's the world we live in right now, and I think that I'm hoping that journalists will do their job and they will expose the truth. Even if it takes us years, we're going to get the truth to all of this stuff. That's what I want. Journalists are supposed to be the first draft of history. We're supposed to write the history, and that's what we need to be doing. So I'm hoping that there's some really good journalists out there that get down to the bottom of all of that. Yeah, exactly. There is a lot of and all this stuff. Are we really surprised that all of this stuff has been happening? Are we really? Like, if you think about it, it's just been normalized, and now we're thinking it's wrong. Now we're thinking, uh, you know, wait a minute. I thought that, I think a lot of people would love to be rich and they idolize it and they let a lot of things slide. Yeah, it shouldn't be normal at all. It's just, it's crazy. Yeah, exactly. Um, you think that he would have been a coward, yeah. I mean, but then a coward also is not somebody who would commit suicide as much either. I mean, that to me takes a lot of depth of, I don't know. Suicide in itself is really difficult to talk about. I mean, when you're talking about mental health, once again, suicide is like oftentimes something really erratic, because you go through something extreme all of a sudden, and you think that that's the answer, or it's a symptom of long time depression, but it's crazy. I don't know. Like the way he was so cocky, I just couldn't imagine him thinking that he couldn't get out of that situation one way or another because he had all that money. That was just how I saw it. Yeah, me too. I think I'm not gonna say that it happened. I just, it's hard not to believe that it might not happen. I really, you think that out of all the history that this hasn't happened, or the way that all of these people are affiliated with each other on top of that, and they have so much money. And you're talking about people that are directly affiliated on top of that with the power of the state, our justice system, our criminal justice system. They could probably make one call and have you offed easily. Oh, right, exactly. Not you got it right there. You said another video, why he is the only one in the hot seat. It takes more than one person to pull this off. Okay, here's another example of that, right? So those ice raids in Mississippi, that happened to a manufacturing plant for like the Koch brothers, right? Why is it that the the manufacturers are never fined or criminalized? Just the immigrants, you know? They get away with all kinds of stuff. So, that just speaks volumes about where our society is right now. It's sad, but I also posted on my Facebook the other day that change is uncomfortable. I think that change is uncomfortable, and that's what we're going through. Is we're going through a massive amount of change. We're going through, and we're about to hit into a new era, and it's uncomfortable. It's painful. It's sad, and it's shocking that we have lived in this society and not really realized how much uh, ill intent and how much corruption there is. The girls he got involved in getting girls for him were also victims, but yes, lots of men were involved also. That's how it usually happens, especially in sex rings. There's always a lot of victims. There's girls who may have just needed money. There's girls that got manipulated. There's even people that were manipulating girls. There's also a lot of people, though, the very people that are doing it the most are, it's just motivated by money. And then somehow, like, it always happens in sex rings and stuff like that. It's like the men involved who have all the money, they're never exposed, especially if they're in corporate jobs. And you know that that's got to be executives and stuff like that. Like, I used to work for a stock brokerage company, and oh my gosh, if you ever worked for stockbrokers, those dudes, we're talking about back in the days when they had a lot of stockbrokers before the market crashed. They had a lot of them in San Francisco. Those guys were coked up, and at lunch hours they were going to the strip clubs. They were paying for sex left and right, and without a doubt they would probably be part of that kind of getting young girls as well. I hope it gets better too, Zach. I really do. I'm glad that yes, Julie Brown. She's that journalist that exposed him, huh? She really is that right? Am I the right person? You know I'm bad with names. Um, yes, the one that I was like, she she's doing great. So I'm thankful for journalists who really stick, investigative journalists too, because you know investigative journalism is so much work, and it's like being a detective. You have to do a lot of research. Do I believe in the afterlife? I believe that's kind of hard to explain. I believe that you could be in an afterlife. I don't really believe in there being just a straight heaven and hell, because if you look at how things are in the world, it's almost like you can have heaven and hell right here. I couldn't imagine it being any worse. Um, but I also think that I do believe in reincarnation, and I believe in spiritual energy, and that's kind of hard to explain. But I even, as strange as it is, I think one day, there's going to be a way where we can prove that we have like other senses, and there's a scientific explanation for certain things. Like maybe it's in our DNA, maybe it's in our brain. But I don't know. An afterlife, I almost feel like one of the things that makes suicide seem kind of almost pointless to me is the idea that I would end up having to start all over again in a new life. I really do believe that that happens. I also believe in having a soul and having an old soul or a young soul. And so I believe some of our souls are older than others, and there's a deep understanding within you when you are an old soul, and people are kind of drawn to you for that. I feel like I can almost see when people have old souls. Like I've known a few. Yeah, reincarnation makes sense. Everything in this world is recycled. And also, all our resources, there's only so much. We act as if, not we, but, a lot of people in the world act as if there's this endless resources that we're just going to keep going and going and going, and they're not. Like this is the world. We can't even control the world as much as we try to. It's like uh, it's impossible. So I think that the world will recycle itself out, even if we, even if, please let it not happen, but even if we had nuclear war and our planet was uninhabitable, the planet will get rid of us, and then it'll be just like it has in the past. It'll probably ice over, or some sort of environment will happen, and then we'll be reincarnated into something else. We might not be humans, we might be another evolved version. Who knows? Yeah, I have a few Buddhist like beliefs. I did study some Buddhism. I studied a lot of different religions throughout my life. I couldn't remember everything, but you know, the thing about religion is like from every one of them, I can actually identify a certain point in belief, and I could totally see it as being real. So let's see. Yeah, energy is like constantly cycled, right? I feel it. Like it, it comes in, it comes out, and it's also it's almost contagious, right? Like if somebody came around me with negative energy, I get really irritated because I'm like, I don't want you inserting that energy in me. um, so stay over there. I might leave. You know what I mean? What if we die, start a new life as a baby, and then we live out the life not knowing anything about our past life? What if that way was the way all along, would have relieving our past life? Um, I think that we can't possibly remember all our past lives, and it's too much for us, and that's why we don't. But even scientists are starting to uncover that our DNA has linked in it through our ancestors certain kinds of trauma. So, like, they're saying if you're afraid of spiders, it might have been that your ancestor was killed by a spider. If you're afraid of heights, you might have um, accidentally fallen off a cliff in a previous life. Um, so, uh, I think that it's just, it might be too much for us. I know that I had studied psychology a lot, even as a young girl too, because my mom was studying psychology, and we only use a small portion of our brain. So there's so much of our brain that we don't use, and when you think about it, it's like, so what else is there that we're not even using and that we're not thinking about, right? The possibilities are endless, and when you think about how advanced we've come and we've done it so quickly, there's still a lot we don't know. So anything is really possible. You think it would be pointless to have memories of your past life because it will never allow you to start over? Yeah, that's true. And the other thing I think is that if you were like, say, a particularly cruel person, or you had a I feel like in the lessons that you should have learned in your past life, you end up having to learn in the next life. Like that sort of stuff follows you, you know? So if you were a particularly selfish person or a greedy person, maybe you were rich in one life, and then in the next, and I know sounds very Buddhist, right? In the next, you might end up not being rich. Sometimes I think about it because, like, people say they believe in karma, and I'm like, well, then how is it that there's suffering to even children and babies? They just started their life. How could they deserve suffering? It's it's an interesting thought. So, okay, what if we are in a video game and we are video people, and Dade, I might be a video game. That's the good one. Switch back image. Hey, we found out that you missed. Oh, you missed the annual barbecue. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Oakland is like a car show all the time. And there's motorcycles. The thing that is fun is, like, on a regular day, you'll see groups of kids on their bikes. Like, we're talking about 30 kids, and they'll be doing wheelies and all kinds of stuff, just rolling down the neighborhood. There's people on bikes. Like, it's almost like a car show out here all the time. And then, even though you missed the barbecue in All Black, you can come out here on summer on any Sunday, and there's a lot of people barbecuing. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, every day at Lake Merritt is beautiful. So, you don't have to feel like you have to go at that particular day. You can totally come out and visit, and you'll see the same sort of vibes going on. This morning, actually, no, it was like around noon, I was driving to get on the freeway on ramp, not even at the park, and some guy was barbecuing in the middle of a medium by the freeway. I was like, you got the grill out here and you're just sitting out here grilling in the middle of this, damn near in the middle of the street. It was hilarious to me. I'm like, okay, this is so Oakland. Barbecue anywhere. Um, so, okay. This is a corny reference, but if you think of Wolverine and how he kept being born into a new generation, but having too much trauma and pain from his past, no matter what, I don't think that's corny. I think that some of that trauma may stick with you. And trauma, though, if you do it right, it actually helps you grow. you know, it goes back to that growth and change is uncomfortable, but sometimes it's necessary. Um, so what if we're going to reincarnate, but since technology today, what if we don't remember? Yeah, we wouldn't remember. You know, and the sad thing is, if you're born into being rich and you never ever have a hard day in your life, you're never going to understand other people that do have a hard time. And that's a lot of the issues we have today. All right, I gotta turn off this light because it's actually giving me a headache. Ooh. And I think that I might, because it's about an hour now, I might get off and relax. Because it's hot over here. But I had a lot of fun chatting with everybody, and I think this was a great conversation. I mean, this was actually amazing. We talked about a little bit about everything, including mental health, so I appreciate it. Okay, Nathan, so back to what I wanted to say is the person who is clearly Barbecue Becky is all over the YouTube on every single Barbecue Becky video, Grizzly. That wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it was her. It's either her or a family member. I think I said this in another video. Somebody was digging through our trash trying to demand that I think it ended up being her husband or something. Believe it or not, she has a whole family. So I agree with you. It probably is her aggressively. I also think that she has somebody who keeps talking about they're a nurse, and they, you know, there's like certain people that keep saying, oh, you know, she has mental health issues, you're in the wrong for harassing her. And I'm like, if she has mental health issues, then she shouldn't be bothering people. I mean, like, what can I do? Like, she's clearly coherent enough to keep harassing people, you know. Like, I don't know, like, I'm not gonna just sit there and just let somebody, you know, keep harassing people. You know, it just is what it is, right? Oh, she has? She's calling me out? Good luck with that. I don't know what she's calling out for. I mean, like, look at me. I'm online. I'm out here. She's hiding. Like, she could come out and talk to me. Good night, Zach. Thank you. You're awesome too. Thank you so much. Yeah, but I'm about to relax myself. I appreciate everybody coming in to the chat. I think it's time to yeah, that is obsessive. It's like it's too late. The video is almost watched 7 million times now. The whole video, like on YouTube alone. So I don't know what she would be doing. It's just, it would be easier if she would just accept that we didn't appreciate what she did and just get over it. Bye. All right. So we're all going to say goodbye and good night. And thank you, Raina, for moderating. You did a great job. Thank you, Great One, for asking a lot of great questions. Thank you, Nay West. Yeah, only 7 million, right? And you've been on TV and all this stuff. Like, you're well known by everybody now. Celebrities have talked about you. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. Everybody's had an interaction with her. Yeah, she's probably confrontational. Well, anyways, thanks for coming. I'm gonna try and do next week, but I'm going to Silicon Valley Comic-Con, so I'm not sure how I will do a live chat on that Saturday, but I'll figure it out and I'll post it. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.